Awesome. Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time today. Let's get started. Dive right in. Tell us about your background. Your bio is quite a storied set of brands and helping other brands, and you have so many experiences. I'd love to hear from you how you view this long career of having done so much for the restaurant industry.
Well, thanks. Wonderful to be here talking to you today, Anand. So I'm Aaron Noveshen. I'm founder and CEO of Starbird. I started my career in the restaurant industry as a chef. I was a fine dining chef for many years here in San Francisco and in LA, and hit a point where the grind of fine dining cooking didn't really just tap into some of the other interests I had in business and industry and working with people. And so I co-founded a restaurant company by the name of World Wraps back in the 90s. We were the first wrap concept. And we were the first people to bring flavored tortillas to the market and really to popularize wraps, which are having quite a resurgence right now, which is kind of fun to see 30 years later. How the chicken Caesar wrap that I put on a menu 30 years ago is now like the hottest thing in the restaurant industry again. So I started a company called The Culinary Edge, which is an innovation agency to help brands really become better in and to scale. So how to fundamentally be a culinary driven as a chef, but also how can you scale culinary in a meaningful and profitable way? That was a lot of the thesis of the consultancy. And it grew to become a large branding agency. And over time, we worked with over 30% of the top 200 restaurant chains, seven of the top 10 in the world. Uh, Fortunately, I was able to exit that business and sell it to a private equity group last year so that I could focus 100% of my time on Starbird.
That's phenomenal. And tell us about the origin story of Starboard. By the way, I confess as a fan, and not just a fan, but every time we actually host an event, me and my wife, we typically get a few Starboard sandwiches, mainly because it's both vegetarian and non-vegetarian friendly. And there's a spicy option, but the best part is like it's so easy to hold and eat. It's just the perfect kind of thing that you can hold and walk around. In fact, we actually did something on a boat, and people loved sort of walking around, and they were like, wow, a lot of them kind of discovered the brand, which is a surprise to me. But overall, I think there's just so many fine details about sort of the brand that makes me such a big fan. So I'd love to hear about what your thinking was in the run up to sort of creating Starbird, and tell us about the.
Sure. So I had started a couple restaurant companies, World Wraps, as I mentioned, also Pacific Catch, a regional seafood, polished casual restaurant house here, also on the West Coast. And while we were at the Culinary Edge, which was taking the majority of my time, the team here was really excited about the work we were doing for others and feeling like, hey, I think it's time for us to walk the talk for ourselves, not just be a consultative agency, but also to build something that could scale. And originally, we were quite agnostic about what we wanted to open. We just wanted to prove that we could create one of the greatest restaurant companies ever. And we did a lot of research and even put our identification process into where market opportunities were. And one of those opportunities arose, and it was around chicken. And about 10 years ago, we identified that it looked like chicken was going to be something pretty big. Needless to say that that proved to be true. And we're happy that we went after this category. In going after it, though, we said, well, how are we going to differentiate? How are we going to sort of go where the puck is going versus standing still to where chicken is today? And most of chicken, even today, is really Southern based, very Americana, whether it be Nashville chicken or Chick-fil-A out of Atlanta or Zaxby's or Raising Cane's or Kentucky Fried Chicken. All of these brands are Southern based. And we realize that there's a lot more to the number one protein that exists in America. We're in a West Coast urban center, and there's a lot of taste profiles and interest and exploration in flavors and health and quality that we wanted to differentiate ourselves with. And hence, that's the origin of Starbird. So we created a brand that wasn't just another Southern brand. It was a little bit better for you, definitely chef driven, ingredients that hadn't been seen before in traditional QSR. And technology played a big part of how we were going to connect to consumers. We really wanted to fix the way that the consumer was interacting with brands and be able to help them navigate, have less friction, and be able to connect with our brand in any way that they wanted to connect, where they were walking in the front door, ordering on an app. Back then, there wasn't a lot of third-party delivery, but we realized that convenience was king, and using technology to leverage convenience was a big part of what we wanted to be.
That's amazing. And all of those different aspects definitely come together whenever I think about Starbird. One of the interesting things that I noticed about 3 to 4 years ago, and even now, there's probably a couple of things actually there. One is I think the brand, it's probably fair to say that the brand is you think a lot about delivery, and you mentioned convenience. There is a one in the airport, which is amazing. Great stop. Before you fly. What does it take for a brand to sort of get with convenience the way that you did, and at the same time not be stagnant and stale with all of the flavors you keep launching every time. Every time I open the Starboard website, I'm like, or go to a store, I'm trying to look for something that's new, because rest assured there is something there, that you're launching all the time. So tell me about how you think about those two things. Like, one is a super optimized format, and the other one is this constant need to like come up with new things, and that evolving menu.
I think that we on the one hand are always trying to simplify, right? So every day we want to make it easier for our team members to execute, to make their lives and their job better, right? So that they can connect with our consumers. We want it every single day for our consumers to more easily navigate our menu, to navigate our experience, navigate how they can interact with our brand. So if I were to say, is innovation more important than simplicity? No, I would say we think about being simple more often than innovative. On the flip side, simplicity doesn't always create buzz and excitement and connection with the brand. And certainly you can be a brand that has one item and you execute it excellently every single day and you have it in your repertoire, and hats off to those brands. I envy their success, but they're few and far between. I think we have a certain superpower in that we can create delicious food and new tastes and new formats in ways that really get people excited. Right. And we hear from our guests all the time, there's always something new and interesting at Starbird, and they also can trust us for executing on it, right? There's a lot of brands that try different things and different flavors where they just don't deliver on promise. And we hear from our consumers that they love the fact that they can explore something new and different. And it's sure they go back to a lot of their favorites and standbys, but when they want to try something new and different, it is an exciting brand to interface with.
Love that. That's very obvious in the way you all execute. So one of the things that's happening at a macro level is the growth of delivery and digital ordering. And for all of the reasons that we discussed right now, sort of having seen the brand evolve, it feels like Starbucks ready to meet the moment. You're sort of there, ready to go. You have a great sort of loyalty first party setup. You have a great presence on third party apps. You're one of the local favorites, or you're up top there, and your packaging's great. you know, your ratings are great. I'm sure this wasn't how it started, or was it? How was it a few years ago or many years ago when you were starting to think about the customer sort of evolving into this media and being so deliberate about designing the experience both on and off premise to sort of meet customers where they are?
Mhm.
I'd love to sort of hear your, the story through your lens.
Sure. So when we started and when we formulated the brand, we thought the most successful fast casual or polished QSR type of brands, did 50% on premise, 50% off premise, 50% lunch, and 50% dinner. And we set out to design a brand to capture those balance usage cases. We also have breakfast, which I recommend in the airport and nowhere else, or maybe if you have a captive audience. But ultimately, that was a test we did that we departed from. So we knew that it wouldn't necessarily be a huge part of the business, but was something that we wanted to explore. in sort of recreating the fast food experience. So a lot of fast food brands do breakfast, and we realized that that's a lot of work for a little reward. So over time, we always wanted to be sort of a modern convenience. I remember going through a drive-through and sitting captive and saying, like, I have a phone and I could have a menu in my hand, I could order, but it's not functioning in a drive-through environment. So our original hypothesis was, wouldn't it be great if you could order on your phone, pull up, and they just hand you food, right? And you sort of meet that food as you're arriving. We learned that that was convenient and that did work for many, but there was a little bit of lack of technology happening close to 10 years ago that allowed for discourse back and forth and to, inquire with people inside and things of that nature. What was happening at the same time we launched, there was the rise of, I would say, Starbucks doing it the best, which was ordering ahead on an app, walking in the door, right? As long as there was a place to park or you could walk in from an urban center. And that was really what was considered convenient. And we realized that because we had adequate parking and the weather's pretty good in California most of the year, and not that many people have a baby in the back that they can't leave for any bit of time, that the majority of our consumers could easily just order ahead and walk in the door, grab their bag, and leave. And today, that's still a dominant part of our business. What evolved over time, and particularly during the pandemic, and we had delivery and we were working with third party delivery folks before the pandemic. But when the pandemic hit, the third party delivery skyrocketed. Fortunately, we were already positioned, set up, had all the infrastructure to leverage that. And we were quite a bit ahead. Some people couldn't even get third party delivery turned on because there was such a line by restaurateurs to start this business. We had already been there. We even had virtual brands, all sorts of different ways to connect with the consumer we had already been doing before the pandemic. So we learned that convenience for the consumer meant a lot of times not even to leave the house. They didn't want to leave the safety of their own home. And so third party delivery started to become a really instrumental part of our business. As things from the pandemic subsided, that third party delivery really didn't go away for the most part. People came back to the restaurant. There was a little bit of trade off, but we really ended up keeping a lot of that business. And our growth between 2020, 21, 22, a huge, 25% a year, 25% a year, like these unbelievable numbers of growth we experience, all while not losing the core of our business of people who wanted to come in the door or order ahead and still pick up. But we still maintain, over 30% of business at Starbird in delivery today.
That's amazing. And your delivery presence, especially with all of the ratings and reviews and even the way the menu is organized, it's just so intuitive and straightforward. And I hope you continue that dominance. What were some of the challenges, or what were some of the things that you thought you had to like really sit down, think about solving in terms of delivery? Maybe there are problems that you're thinking about now, or there were problems and then you sort of like solve for them eventually. What comes to mind when you think about the biggest challenges there?
Yeah, the biggest challenge in any off-premise food is accuracy at the end of the day, right? Because if you make a mistake and the person is dining in your restaurant, the ability to solve or fix that problem is as much as them standing up, walking to the counter and saying, "Hey, can you fix this for me?" And you gratefully will do that. And is it a slight inconvenience for them? Yes, but you can connect face to face. You can make it right. You can ensure that they feel like you're doing everything you can. And there's honest mistakes that happen. And generally, those mistakes can even be turned into greater positives about how you solve them. When someone is at home and they receive an order that is inaccurate, that they've waited 30, 40 minutes, maybe even an hour for in some cases, which is mind boggling, but sometimes the case, depending on a Friday night and who's available to, deliver food, it's very difficult to solve someone's problem. And so I think the biggest thing to solve for ultimately for us is accuracy. And so we've spent a lot of time and energy working on creating accuracy and making sure that the guest is getting what they want. And that comes from ease of navigation of ordering, forms of verification, both for the guests themselves and for ourselves to verify. Everything and anything we can do to make that accuracy work is really key and critical. Packaging is, something that makes sure that the quality and integrity of the food stays intact. We test food. Every single product that we make in our test kitchen, we taste after 15 minutes sitting in a box, at 30 minutes sitting in a box, or however it is, just to know, because most of those items are going to be eaten in that state, not immediately served at the moment it comes off the line. So we're very conscious of formulating food that travels well. No one has perfected the French fry yet, but many have tried. So
Super hard one.
it's a
Yeah.
difficult one. And even a tater tot will steam out a bit in a box that we've learned.
Yeah.
But those are some of the challenges, and there's also challenges just in terms of what we're solving from a business standpoint. We have a partner who is truly a partner. The DoorDashes and Ubers of the world, they're our partners, right? And we're always seeking win-win solutions where they can best serve our guests, grow our business, expand who we can reach with a logistics system and in some ways a marketing system to attract new guests. Those are things that we appreciate and seek out. Some people think that third-party delivery is a necessary evil. We don't think about it that way. We see this as part of our business and one in which both ourselves and our third-party delivery partners should benefit from the sales and demand that we both fulfill. Ensuring that there's the right balance of profits, marketing dollars being spent well, accounting being smooth and seamless, transparency of what's happening. Those are the things that a lot of brands like ourselves need help with from others who aren't in the mud every day.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and how do you get that help?
Well, certainly working with them directly, first and foremost. But secondarily, working with folks like yourself at Loop have really helped us in a lot of ways. I think that when we think about when we first started working with Loop, a lot of it was initially, hey, there's a lot of billbacks or a lot of things that where people are claiming that we did not fulfill their order, and trying to manage all that traffic and data and communication was something that was overwhelming for us as a business. And how that's been automated and handled and managed externally by Loop has really helped us, right? It's just taken that thing that would cost us more than we ever could in return for the hours it would take to recoup those things. Secondarily, how that data is processed and integrated into our accounting system has been really, really helpful, right? It's just eliminated a tremendous amount of accounting time, reconciliation time, and the technology that Loop has helped us be much more effective and efficient. And I think most recently, the greatest thing that we've benefited from is analyzing our marketing spend, how we go, and we're more than happy to invest money with our third party partners if we both benefit. And what we've learned is they're still trying to figure it out themselves. They don't necessarily know how to best invest marketing dollars in a way that's mutually beneficial. And sometimes the folks that we're working with don't always understand the nuances of how we look at it and analyze our business. Loop has really helped us analyze different campaigns, paybacks. Have these sales been cannibalized through our normal organic channels? What's created return business versus not? And the data that's provided is much more neutral and less one-sided to say, look, you spent money here, look how great we are. Like, it's a third-party view that's saying, hey, here's the best way to spend your money. Here's what's going to create the greatest returns. And let's build upon and try and do different trials and learn as we go.
Love that. And the spirit of experimentation and trying to evolve with the times. And, every year since the pandemic even has been very different. And, the reporting and the complexity of these businesses evolve, which makes, the accounting piece hard, but the growth demands and the competitive landscape and everything. And honestly, these marketplaces have been super innovative and unleashing a lot more levers to exercise to. And there's a lot of complexity there, and ultimately we're trying to simplify that, for you and get you to try out a lot of things while getting to profitable growth. It's amazing to hear that. What do you uh, what's your frame, as you think about 2026, 2027, and beyond, as it relates to delivery, but more broadly, help me contextualize that in with respect to the other trends that are happening in the restaurant business. I believe, we are seeing so much, churn, we are seeing so much growth as well, but it seems to be like, place of haves and have-nots. There's a lot of things going on that on the one side, for instance, Starbird, you guys are opening up restaurants so fast, getting into more states, and sort of going and unlocking the demand in all of these other metros and elsewhere, and looking to digital and delivery being a good part of that. And then you look at the news, and it's a different story. You mentioned Starboard or even the Chipotles and the Kavas and the fast casuals. They're all sort of showing mixed signals. So help us understand what's going on here and how you're thinking about the future here, Aaron.
I think how we think about the future fundamentally is sales cure all ills, right? And we are always relentlessly trying to improve everything we do, right? But we don't necessarily think about saving our way to prosperity, right? So as long as we can drive guest traffic, top line sales, guest experience, that's going to win the long race. As we expand to other markets, we have to learn about new guest profiles, understand that the guest in the San Francisco Bay Area doesn't necessarily look like the guest in Salt Lake City. Doesn't mean that someone in Salt Lake City isn't going to be a great lover of Starbird because they love chicken, they love delicious food, they like convenience, they're tech enabled, but they demographic and psychographic might be slightly different. So what we try and find is a common ground for these places we're expanding to ensure that we go into the areas of these new cities where people understand and appreciate where we are differentiated. I believe that as we go into these new markets, we're pretty advanced in our technology compared to many brands. We're advanced in the way that we have a food delivery system. We're a small brand, but we try and act bigger and also try and act where the consumer's mindset is going, right? And so we're bullish on what we're doing because we have figured out a way to consistently deliver upon what has been successful for us here in California. We just opened a restaurant in Denver and it's doing great. We have an amazing partner there who has adopted the things that are terrific about Starbird. And they've also provided feedback and even pushback sometimes and say, why do we do it this way? Is this the best way? And we really embrace thoughtful questioning, right? Because we're constantly trying to reframe what we do. And sometimes those questions lead to, this is why. And they're like, I get it now. And other times it leads to, let's think about this together. How might we do something new and different that's going to work in this area that might be different from what we're used to? So we're always open to becoming better. We're always open to new ways of thinking, new ways of reaching the consumer, adopting technology, investing more smartly in things that are going to work, and not being afraid to test and fail while we're doing it.
Love that. That's amazing, Aaron. Well, I think, I hope you grow, invest, and do that, having a lot of fun, testing out a lot of these things. And I can tell you for a fact that there's a lot of restaurants that look up to you, that look up to the brand Starbird. I think it's a restaurateur's restaurant, in terms of, people trying out the product and just being amazed. So, here's wishing you a lot of success, Aaron, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And thank you so much for being such a great partner to us, helping our business grow, help us think differently, and always being curious about, what's the right opportunity and what's the right way to do things better. I love that about you and the company you've created.
Always a pleasure, Aaron. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks.